Welcome back to Pin and Reel. I'm your host, Uncle Joel, and today we're going to be discussing Dark Knight's death metal, Trinity Crisis. This is a tie-in to the Dark Knight's death metal event, and it's written by Scott Snyder and drawn by Francis Manapul. Now, this issue takes place immediately after the events of issue number 3 of the main event. And going into this, I wasn't really sure what to expect. So issue 3 of the death metal event set up the heroes to go into the dark multiverse to the 3 different crises. Crisis on Infinite Earths, to Infinite Crisis, all the way to the Final Crisis. So since that was clearly set up in the main book, and that was going to be a central focus of the main event, I was very skeptical of how this tie-in was going to work. Now, it could have gone 2 different ways. One, the main event was just setting up for the tie-in, and the tie-in was going to be the one that was really going to focus on this story beat. Or 2, this is going to be a central story beat for the main event, and the tie-in was just going to connect to it somehow, but wasn't going to actually tell the main beats of that. And unfortunately, they went with the latter option. And for a book that is titled Trinity Crisis and that has the Anti-Monitor and Darkseid and Superman Prime on the cover facing down Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman, you would think that this confrontation in the dark multiverse centering around these crises would be the central focus of the book. Unfortunately, this book is more set up for that ultimate confrontation than any actual confrontation itself. The entire issue centers around the heroes trying to get to the dark multiverse in order to access these crises, rather than actually focusing on the crises themselves. And the way the book ends, it leads directly into issue number 4 of the main event. Now, it's yet to be seen how exactly this story beat is going to play out in the main event, so the things that I wanted to see here may actually play out in issue number 4 and beyond. But as it is, this issue feels like a bit of fluff rather than actual further development of the story. Now, that being said, I would say it's kind of welcome fluff. See, we get far more character development and time with the characters here than we have in any of the issues in the main series. You get some good time with Jarro, with Jonah Hex, with Harley Quinn and Swamp Thing. You get some focus on the side characters that get only brief flashes of screen time in the main series. You see, I would have preferred if this was called something like Road to Trinity Crisis, or something like that would have given more of an idea that this is the journey to this point, whereas it's not actually focused on this major confrontation. So really, it's kind of difficult for me to say what exactly I think of this issue, because on the one hand, it is fairly unnecessary to the overarching story, and I don't feel like it really adds a whole lot to the narrative being told. On the other hand, we do get character moments, and it's far more intimate and personal to the characters than anything in the main event series. I feel like this book slows down in a way that the main event would really benefit from. You don't really get any significant development here, and I would say at this point, you could probably skip this issue and just read the main event, and you wouldn't miss a thing. Now, on the other hand, this is a much better paced issue than any of the main event, and the character work is much better and is far more interesting and engaging than Scott Snyder's normal tendency to just throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. Now, this book does suffer a little bit from one of my main complaints with the main series of there's just a bunch of stuff that's thrown out and not really developed, which primarily manifests as new versions of Batman, and a lot of them are just kind of ridiculous to me, such as a Batman version of Solomon Grundy, or a Batman version of Amazo. But then there are others that are introduced that I feel like are really interesting and could be very compelling characters in their own right if brought into the main universe the way the Batman Who Laughs was. But just hopefully with a little less market saturation. But for all of the good character work, there are a few small sequences that don't really feel right to me. There's one sequence in particular with Superman that feels very out of character for him, and I feel like it was poorly written. But it's just a brief 2-panel sequence, and really you can get past it. It's not significant to the story. So overall, I would say if you are enjoying Dark Knight's death metal, that this would be worth checking out. It is a much slower paced and more personal take on the story, and provides a bit of breathing room where the main event just kind of charges forward on all cylinders. However, if you're not really digging the main event, I would say skip this. It doesn't really add anything significant that is going to change your mind or sway you in any way. I am curious to see how things play out from here, and hopefully the other tie-in issues do a little bit better of justifying their existence. But at the very least, even if they don't provide a lot to the main event, it will be nice to have more of these deeper looks at the characters and the circumstances surrounding them. I would say this is probably one of the better issues in the event so far, maybe even the best, but it's difficult to say that since there wasn't a lot of story progression. So it's just, I have a lot of mixed feelings about this one. Most of the negatives, though, are not knocks against the book. It's more just in regards to its place within the event itself. So this is a solid issue. I would recommend it, but only if you're enjoying the event. But if you've read the issue, what do you think? Do you think we should have more issues like this that are slower in pace and really allow time for the story to breathe and explore the characters more? Or do you prefer the breakneck pace that Scott Snyder has been using thus far in the Dark Knight's Death Metal event? Do you want to just get all of the crazy ideas out there and just charge forward? Or do you want more time digging down into the characters and seeing their interactions with this strange new world? Let me know down in the comments. Help me out and hit like and subscribe so that you don't miss any of my Dark Knight's Death Metal coverage or any of my other comic book coverage in the future. Where I'm going to be doing a lot of reviews of comics that are from the 80s and that are from just a few years ago and everything in between and maybe even older. Just whatever fits my fancy, and maybe even stuff that you want to hear my take on. If there are any books that you want to hear my thoughts on, leave a comment, and I just might look into that. But until next time, this is Uncle Joel saying, stay tangible.